Welcome to Thursday, August 14th, 2025. Your Day with a Podcast brought to you by the Advocates Injury Attorneys. If you've been injured in an accident, don't face it alone. Get an experienced local Wyoming attorney on your side. Free consultations at WyomingAdvocates.com or call 307-800-1952. You deserve an advocate. Well, moisture will be increasing as subtropical moisture is surging northward. We'll talk about that here in a moment. First of all, I'm releasing the fall-winter outlook at noon today, Mountain Time, on the Day Weather YouTube channel. A word of caution, it's long. It's about 30 minutes long. So if you want to just get the forecast, watch the first 5 minutes and then scroll to about minute number 23 and then watch it from there. The reason it's so long is I just like to back up the reasoning behind the long-range forecast. It's a lot of weather nerdy stuff, so you can skip over that if you don't want to sit through the whole thing. So just a word of caution there. A lot of people have been asking me about the Juneau flooding. We'll talk about that briefly. Then increasing thunderstorm chances basically today through the weekend for both sides of the divide. Both sides of the divide today, tomorrow, and Saturday. Then the thunderstorms mainly are going to be found east of the divide Sunday into the early portions of next week. And then a rather interesting setup late next week. And the weekend after this one could be developing, even though we have a big high pressure ridge that's going to form over the Rockies. We'll show you what we're seeing, and we'll see whether or not it ends up developing or not. Yesterday, we did see some thunderstorms blow up in extreme northeastern Wyoming, but mainly up into western South Dakota and then up into Pine Ridge country of Nebraska, where that moisture was curving around the high coming off the Pacific yesterday. And then you can see, kind of looks like a spaceship there from the Gillette area of those thunderstorms building up. And they did build up and were quite mean looking on radar. Their bark ended up being a little bit worse than the bite. Nonetheless, we did have some severe weather up in parts of South Dakota and northern areas of Nebraska yesterday. There's a shot from Gordon, Nebraska of some good rain shafts coming on through. And those thunderstorms grew tall enough that that's quite a distance from the Pavilion area near the Lander Riverton area, looking all the way towards Sturgis, South Dakota there in terms of the clouds building and growing tall. Then post-storm, nice sunset. And then we do still have a lot of fire activity. This is from the Spring Creek fire near Ten Sleep. Fire activity in parts of the west really getting going with the heat, the very low humidity, and the lack of rain in many areas here recently, and depending on where you are for most of the summer season. So you're going to get some tinge of color in the sky with some smoke and haze still around the region. Beautiful shot there out of eastern Laramie County, Wyoming yesterday evening. Then a nice shot, pretty shot there of the Sierra in Round Valley, California. The Juneau flooding. So I went back and I looked. Is it just the glacier? And the answer is an emphatic no. Now, Juneau is a wet place. Okay, it's a wet place anyway, for anybody familiar with it, but it's been very, very wet in the month of August. What you're seeing here is the daily report, climate report for Juneau for the first 12 days of August. This doesn't include yesterday. That report's not in yet. But what I want you to show you right here is the rainfall. There has actually only been 2 days where there hasn't been measurable moisture, actually only 1 day. There was a trace, but the amount of rain that's fallen in Juneau in August is double the average amount for the first 12 days of the month. Just under 4.5 inches of rain. And you can see the temperatures really haven't been very, very warm. So we've got a lot of rain in summer with the normal melting that you're going to get. And if you look at the last 90 days of temperature, so basically how have the summer temperatures gone there? Well, they've actually been, on the whole, adding 90 days up a bit below average, but mainly a little bit below the 30-year average. And precipitation for the last 90 days has been very, very wet. So you just can't say it's the glacier. The data shows that it's been wet, very wet, and it also hasn't been excessively hot either. So let's get back to the forecast for the next several days. We're going to be watching this area. This is the next moisture plume that's really, over the last couple of days, extended further north. Here you can see the Thunderstorms continuing just like they've been doing for the weeks, really multiple weeks, where the thunderstorms form that continue in the overnight hours into the upper plain states in the northwest Corn Belt. The water vapor showing the moisture very well now. It's really come together. So here it comes. It's going to be arching around. And so today we'll start to see thunderstorm activity beginning to pick up again. Subsidence or sinking air here underneath the developing high pressure to the east, causing clear skies and very little activity there. But rotating around the high will be the moisture. The high over the course of the next couple of days will be migrating more to the east, opening the door to the subtropical moisture. So thunderstorms look like this today. Now, some of these thunderstorms will be rain producers. Some of these are going to be more harm than good with wind and lightning. But as the moisture does get deeper over the next 72 hours, some of them will be better rain producers. And we can only hope that some of the fire areas of Colorado and Wyoming can get rained on. I think there's at least a chance that's going to happen here over the next 3 days. So the thunderstorm risk in terms of strong thunderstorms will remain where it's been over the north central plains of the U.S., but you can see the general thunderstorms reaching back through the Rockies and the desert southwest. The subtropical moisture tomorrow really gets a lot deeper. You can see the green and the white and the blue areas there coming up from the south. And so there's your thunderstorm coverage tomorrow. A lot like today, but it looks like Friday and Saturday are the 2 days of the better rain-producing thunderstorms, especially tomorrow in places like Arizona, as you can see there, Utah, western Colorado, western New Mexico, then getting up into western areas of Wyoming. And the thunderstorm risk tomorrow looks like this. Again, those stronger storms in the same areas. Saturday, the monsoonal moisture is pretty deep over Wyoming into the Dakotas and stretching down there into New Mexico. That Pacific Northwest moisture kind of is not part of this, but it is showing that increasing flux from the low that is coming off the coast of the Pacific Northwest. So there's your thunderstorm coverage going to be on Saturday. You can see it starts to move out of Arizona as it's beginning to move. And by Sunday, you can see that north and eastward push of the better moisture. Big thunderstorm activity up into Montana, parts of Idaho there, then into northeastern Wyoming and the Dakotas, while we start to see drier air punch in here. So just your pattern that you would expect this time of year as we go through the middle parts of August. As we get into Tuesday and next week, you're going to be hearing more about Aaron. You're going to have to watch Aaron. It's going to be a hurricane and getting to be a very large one. Right now it's predicted to kind of come close to the Carolinas and curve back out. But you know hurricanes. You can't trust any modeling this far out, but it bears watching. So out here in the west, early next week, we just have a big summer high settling back in over southeastern Colorado. So as it works westward, it will cut off the better moisture on this side of the high and keep the moisture kind of going over here. So the thunderstorms will be along and east of the divide early next week. But as the week evolves, what we're going to see is the shape of the wind flow pattern change in the western United States as the high really establishes itself. And what I'm going to show you is that as we get into next week, I want to highlight this area of moisture right here. We're not going to be talking about here, which is making this a little bit different. But the higher humidity air that's in this part of the country right here is actually being forecasted to go this direction, then around, as we get a big high that forms over the central Rockies. Now, will it happen? Don't know. We're going to have to watch it because as we get into next weekend, this is Saturday the 23rd, we have a deep high right over the Four Corners. But look at the wind barbs where the winds at 18,000 feet are. If you follow them, the air that's here gets brought, if you follow the wind barbs, around like this. So if you bring the air, which is very humid, here and bring it around the high, well, you're going to have quite a bit of thunderstorm activity. But it all depends on the high. If the high ends up further south, it'll go this way and not be much of a factor. If it goes more north, the high, well, the moisture will get more directed to the north. But if we look at the precipitable water over time, Look what happens as we get into next weekend. You can see the dark green and the blue really coming on in. And what's interesting is, as we showed you earlier, it's this moisture that actually gets brought in, and then the anomaly starts to show up over here. And the reason it looks like the moisture starts here, it's because this air is basically off nominal. It's air from here coming into the deserts, and the deserts see that, and you basically compare that to what the average amount of humidity usually is over the 30-year average. It sees that and goes, whoa, where's that moisture coming from? So that's why it's so blue. So the weekend, or late next week and the weekend of the 23rd and 24th, we'll have to see if that moisture here does indeed curve around and come back like a boomerang. And if it does, it could be some really good news for some very parched areas west of the divide, but it's too early to get excited. Too early to get excited, but we'll watch it very, very closely. Have yourself a great Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow.